Hare Krishna, a heartfelt thank you to each of you. On behalf of our core team, I want to express how deeply impressed we are by your insightful questions, enthusiasm, and unwavering dedication to learning. Your commitment is truly inspiring, and we feel blessed to witness Krishna's mercy in guiding you all. This video serves as a recap for those who may have missed our last session, as well as for anyone who would like to revisit and reflect on the captivating story of Mahabharata. Well, let's take a few moments to refresh our minds as we continue this incredible journey together. So this story starts with a personality called Shantanu Maharaj, who was a king of Hastinapur. Shantanu Maharaj is from a dynasty called Nar Dev Sampada. Nar means human, Dev means divine. Basically what it means is the people who don't easily get corrupted. And Shantanu Maharaj one day walking in the forest, and he saw a beautiful lady called Ganga. Who is Ganga really? As we all know, Ganga is a river. This brings our first lesson. We have lesson one is a culture of personalism. It means a culture of personalities. In Vedic culture, rivers are also having personalities. And when we talk about Ganga, we talk about personality behind the river. In Vedic culture, things are treated as person. And in the modern culture, we treat people as things. Like Parvati Mata is a daughter of who? Is a daughter of Parvat, of Himalayas, Giriraj. And even in the Vedic worlds, even weapons that are used, they have a name as well. Every weapon has a name. Arjun's bow is called Gandiv. Isn't it amazing? We live in a culture where things are personified and respected. But unfortunately, we're trying to be part of a culture where people are made into things and disrespected. We know the example of, our parents told us, don't touch your books with your, feet. We get told off by parents if we do that. We are taught to respect even things as a person. Person to person is easier. When you disrespect things, you're naturally inclined to disrespect people. We are living in an age where things are loved and people are used. Ideally, things should be used and people should be loved. So lesson one is to understand, respect, appreciate, and empathize with people feeling and respect them for who they are. Well, story continues. Shantanu Maharaj attracted to Ganga, and they decided to get married, but Ganga put some conditions. Her conditions were, whatever I do, you shouldn't question me. And Shantanu Maharaj was so blind by all these desires. Oh yes, whatever you want, I will do it, whatever you want. And desires blind a person so much that we forget all the conditions that apply. Our scriptures used two words, Shreyas and Prayas. Shreyas means long-term goals and aspirations, and Prayas means short-term goals or immediate fulfillment. Just like a Nike ad, just do it. Don't think about the future, just do it. Anyway, they got married. Shantanu and Ganga Mata, they got married, and Another lesson that comes out of sometimes desire blind ones to all the conditions that apply. So despite all these conditions, they got married and they had lovely time. 1 year passed, they had a baby boy, and Shantanu Maharaj found out about the baby boy. He went to see Ganga. He was given birth to a baby boy. He went to the room, and once Shantanu Maharaj noticed Ganga is walking out with the child, walking out of the house. Shantanu Maharaj followed her. Ganga went to the river and just dropped the baby in the river. Conditions apply. Shantanu Maharaj said, they didn't ask anything. He didn't say anything. He just kept it. Things back to normal. Everyone behaved normally after that. Another year passed. Another child born. Same thing happened again. Child born. Ganga went to the river and dropped the baby in the river. And she did that not once, not twice. She drowned 7 of their children. And then same thing happened again when the 8th children she was about to drop. Shantanu Maharaj stopped her. He said, "What are you doing? Are you not human?" Shantanu Maharaj couldn't control, and he just said, "Why are you doing all this? You're not human at all." In cursing her. And that's when Ganga said, "Listen, you asked me the question now. You asked me, this is a condition, so I can't be with you anymore. But I can tell you one thing. Because you've been kind to me for all 8 years, for all these years, you didn't question me. I'll promise you, I'll take care of your 8th son. And I will train him up." And then she also tells a story why she did what she did. Shantanu Maharaj was, in a way, judgmental why he's doing that, but Shantanu Maharaj didn't know the reasoning behind it. So that brings our lesson 3: avoid being judgmental. Don't judge what you don't understand. Those 8 children that were born, these children were 8 Vasus from the heavenly planet. They offended a sage named Vashishta, and Vashishta cursed that all your children will be born as human beings. And 8 Vasus begged for forgiveness, and Vashishta said, "Okay, I will reduce the duration of the curse. 7 of you were born, but immediately after birth, you will come back. But the 8th one, the leader amongst all, you have to live life on behalf of all 7. So every person's story is important and relevant. And if we judge a person based on our version of the story, it's always going to be complicated. Well, Ganga told Shantanu Maharaj, because this child of ours is very special, it's going to play a crucial role in future. I will take the child with me and I'll train him up in the best possible way. Ganga takes the baby and promised to Shantanu Maharaj, "I will do something good for you." Shantanu Maharaj learned something very important, which is we shouldn't judge anyone without listening to their side of the story. And also, what happened next? Ganga came back after 16-17 years and brought their 8th son, who's a big lad now, and his name is Devvrat, and he's a capable boy from the throne. This boy was taught by Saint Brahaspati for all the knowledge, and also trained by Parshuram for all the weapons and fighting skills. And Ganga leaves again after handing over the son. And that brings our lesson 4 for us, which is both good and bad times comes to an end. Shantanu Maharaj was having a good time. when the baby was born, but again sad when the baby was drowned, and so far. So all the good and bad times, they don't stay forever. And then that brings a ray of hope, by when Ganga brings back Devavrat into Shantanu Maharaj's life. Right. We also talked about there are two duties of a parent. First duty of a parent, secondary duty of a parent is providing fooding, clothing, and shelter. Now, most people actually think the secondary responsibility is the primary responsibility. We talked about two stories in there. One, we talked about the story of Butch O'Hare. I'm not going to go through that now again. It's a story of this American brave pilot. And also we talked about the story of Easy Eddie. Easy Eddie is a lawyer of a big American Don, but how he find out, he was helping this Don, but his son actually hates him because he doesn't like to be called a criminal's son. And then when father learned that lesson, he exposed this Don, Al Capone, and then he set as and why these two stories are relevant. The first story, the Butch O'Hare, was an American pilot, was actually a son of Easy Eddie. So the lesson here is the primary responsibility of a parent is providing a good example. There is nothing more important than a parent can do other than providing a good example. And that's exactly what Easy Eddie did. So what happened in the story? Shantanu Maharaj have this Devavrat, but one day Shantanu Maharaj was walking in a forest, and he inhales such a beautiful fragrance, and a divine fragrance. And Shantanu Maharaj walked towards that where this divine smell is coming from, and he saw this beautiful woman called Satyavati. And Shantanu Maharaj asked her to marry me. And he said, "Oh, I'm the king of Hastinapur, and this entire land belonged to me." And Satyavati said, "You have to ask my father." And father of Satyavati put a condition for marriage. As soon as Shantanu Maharaj heard the word condition, "Oh, I don't want to go through this process again. I've heard these conditions before." But the condition was, father of Satyavati put a condition. It says the Satyavati's son should be the next king. And this is the conflict in Shantanu Maharaj, because he's already declared Devavrat as the heir to the throne. So, but even though Shantanu Maharaj said no to Satyavati's father, when he came home, he was very upset. His spirit was so strong, but his flesh is weak, because he's felt. And sometimes we do that, right? Sometimes we felt weak in terms of temptation. Temptation take over our ambitions and our time. Shantanu Maharaj came back to his kingdom, but he's very much disturbed. And another lesson comes in ambition not at the cost of trouble. Satyavati and her father desired the throne of Hastinapur despite being born in a fisherman family. There's a clear difference in nature and the value system between both Satyavati and Shantanu Maharaj. Shantanu Maharaj said, "For my ambition, I cannot put my kingdom down. I can't keep my family down." And he was very sensitive to others' needs. Lesson 8 is sensitivity to others. Put others first, which Shantanu Maharaj did, and he came back. But Shantanu Maharaj was very upset and very disturbed. And Devavrat Notice this, and my father is losing it, and king needs to be stable. And he wants to help his father. Devrat found out about this, and he said, whatever it takes, I will make this problem go away. Desires. Satyavati desires. Her father desires. Shantanu Maharaj desires. And Devrat desires. What did Devrat desires? Well, he wanted to help his father. Devrat went to Satyavati's father and he said, I'll promise you, I will not sit on the throne. Let the sons of Satyavati become the next king. And Satyavati's father told him, you may not sit on the throne, but what about your sons? If they want to sit on the throne. And that's when Devavrat took a vow that I'll keep a lifelong celibacy. Lifelong celibacy. In a way, lifelong celibacy is not that hard. So many sages have done that. But lifelong celibacy, despite being a Kshatriya, when he took that vow, the celestial voice comes and said, Bhishma, Bhishma. From that time onwards, Devavrat name becomes Bhishma. And when his father found out about such a terrible vow, he gave blessing to Bhishma as well. He said, I'll give you the blessing of Ichha Mrityu, which means that you can die whenever you want. See, this brings our next lesson, determination. Determination to maintain our resolve. We feel down in our own eyes when we break our own promise, don't we? So one thing we learn from Bhishma is determination. We can keep our own promise, can't we? We can promise I'll come to Bhagavad Gita class every Sunday at 3 p.m. or earlier than that. I'm sure we can keep this promise. Anyway, story continues. Right, so story so far, Shantanu Maharaj got Bhishma, who can't sit on the throne, and Satyavati had two sons, Chitrangada, who's a great warrior, a potential candidate to sit on the throne, and there's another son, Vichitravirya. So what happens, there is a Gandharva, like a musician, who happens to know, in a different planet, who happens to know that there is a person also called Chitrangada who lives in earth, a potential king of Hastinapur. So this Gandharva Loka guy became insecure and want to make sure there is one Chitrangada and challenge Chitrangada at earth for a fight. And after a long battle, killed him. Just because he had the same name. Poor Chitrangada. Okay, so that brings us another lesson, disease of comparison. How this disease of comparison leaves you with dissatisfaction in life. How can you compare yourself with anyone else? There is no one like you. There is no one who has the same pink fingerprints as you. Every single person in the world is unique. Comparison gives rise to envy. It doesn't leave you peaceful. It doesn't leave you satisfied. Each one of us is unique. If we think about any food we make, right, there is different ingredients goes into the food. Each ingredient is very important. We can't put, if let's say these ingredients have a conversation, oh, I am more important than you. Chili is having a conversation with the rice. Oh, I'm more important than you. I bring the flavor. But, chilies is the right quantity. So chili is required because of its uniqueness, a taste. So everyone is unique. Each ingredient is important. Same thing like human beings. The more we live life with our uniqueness, we'll be more peaceful. And recognizing This is the secret of life. Right. So we have Vichitravirya, who's not fit for a king. He got really bad habits. He's a drunkard. Now the problem is who will become the next king? Perhaps Vichitravirya kids. But the question is, who's going to marry him? Vichitravirya is not a stable person. He is the potential king and got the protection of his brother Bhishma. But beyond that, he's no one. Who's going to marry him? So Bhishma decided, I'm going to get my brother married. And Satyavati tasked him, go and find a suitable match for Vichitravirya. So Bhishma, without any due diligence, he went to a local place where the swamvar was happening, and the swamvar was of 3 girls, Amba, Ambika and Ambalika. And Bhishma just went there unannounced, challenged everyone that anyone who's ready to challenge me. Now look at Bhishma, someone who's trained by Parshuram, taught by Brahaspati, got a boon of Ichha Mrityu. Who's going to challenge him? So inevitable happened. So he won and got all the 3 girls home. And he asked them to marry Vichitravirya. Amba was not happy, whereas Ambika and Ambalika are fine. They're happy with the family and agreed. But Amba was not happy because she's already given heart to another king named Shalva. And in fact, the whole Swamvar was organized so she can marry Shalva. Now Amba scolded Bhishma. He said, you should have asked me first. Bhishma apologized and respectfully sent Amba on a chariot to Shalva. But this Shalva guy is also very petty mind. He said, oh, you've been touched by Bhishma. I can't marry you. Now Amba comes back to Bhishma and said, I want to marry you. I can't be with Shalva or someone who doesn't accept me. Finally, Amba decided to walk out of the palace because Bhishma says, I can't marry you because of my this and these conditions, because of my terrible vow, massive vow. I can't. I'm determined to stay celibacy and not get married. So Amba walked out of the palace and warned Bhishma that I'll be the cause of your destruction. And she went to Parshuram and pushes Parshuram to challenge Bhishma. And Parshuram came back and challenged Bhishma. They both had a fight. And guess what? Bhishma defeated Parshuram also. Parshuram came back to Amba and said, sorry, no one in this world can beat Bhishma. Amba is now furious and decided, if I can't be Bhishma's destruction in this life, I'll be the destruction in the next life. Amba self-immolated herself and born in a family of Drupada in the second birth as Shikandi. Originally she is born as a daughter, but with the boon of Yaksha is transformed into a boy. First ever gender transformation at that time. Shikandi becomes the cause of Bhishma's destruction, death in the Mahabharata war at the end actually. So what we learn from it, heart burns with the fire of revenge. Revenge is like holding something for a very long time. Just like holding a brick for a long time. We hold a brick. It's okay for a few minutes, probably an hour. But after a while, you're holding this brick for a long time. It seems so heavy. So heavy. Sometimes we've been wronged in so much in our hearts. And then we are seldom ready to hear the other side of the story. Two ways to deal with if someone do wrong with us. One is what Amba did, revenge. And remember the result, insult all the time, just, oh, my insult, and think about the revenge. Another option is our lesson number 11, rising above the revenge by forgiveness. There is a famous shloka, Narsaya bharam rupam, rupam se bharam gunam, gunam se bharanam jnanam, jnanam se bharam shama. Well, ornament of a human being is beauty. What is the point of being beautiful if you don't have good qualities? Gunam. So verse goes even further. Gunam se bharanam jnanam. It's not enough to have good qualities. You should have good knowledge. How to use those good qualities. And then it goes further. Jnana se bharanam kshama. For the ornament of a person who is knowledgeable is his ability to forgive. So you may be the most knowledgeable, beautiful, good qualities, but if you can't forgive, you're missing something very important. Forgiveness helps rise above revenge, rise above holding grudges, rise above petty jealousy. Mahabharata teaches us this lesson. Right. So now Vichitravirya got married with those two, but after the marriage with Ambika and Ambalika, Vichitravirya dies. So let's think about it. Satyavati made this brilliant plan, the proper checkmated Bhishma, checkmated everyone. But look now, where is she? Vichitravirya is also dead. Things don't go as per our plan, are they? So the next lesson is plan to live by his plan, which means God's plan. One says, write your plans down in pencil and make sure you give the eraser to God. We talked about a story of a child who went to a shop. It was his mama's shop, his mom's brother's shop. And his uncle said, go take sweets from the jar. Go take sweets from the jar. And he was saying, no. Mom said, go on, your uncle is telling you, please take the sweets. Don't worry, take the sweets. No, he wasn't listening. He said no. After insisting, he wasn't listening. And then Mama finally just opened the jar, put his hand in and gave the sweets to the boy. And boy accepted it, with both hands. And when they were walking back with Mom asked, why didn't you take the sweets from the jar? He said, Mom, look, my hands are so tiny. If I put my hand in the jar, I would have only taken 1 or 2 sweets, maybe 4. But when my uncle to put his hand, look, I got 11 sweets. So, give the plan, pencil, eraser to God. Plan to live by his plan. He may have a bigger plan. You may not even thought of that. Well, now they have no one to sit on the throne. And if you think about ultimate thought process of Bhishma, wow, what was the thought process? Was his father to be peaceful and a flourished kingdom? But now, look at this. Time has changed. Place has changed. Circumstances has changed. So when we practice dharma, we should look at this. We will learn about charity in the Jnana Yoga section as well, about time, place, and to a worthy person. So dharma needs to be applied according to the circumstances. Understand what that principle was and apply this in today's life. So what's next? Satyavati has learned her lesson, that she was being selfish earlier and all that. And she told a secret to Bhishma that she never told to anyone. She said She had another son before marriage. She said when she was a very young girl, she was once on a boat, dad's boat. Remember, she was a fisherman's daughter, doing her fisherman duties, and one powerful looking sage appeared from the mist. Very powerful looking sage. Satyavati got scared. Anyone would be scared, right? The sage was Prashar Muni. Prashar speaks up and said, "You have been chosen to give birth to a Supreme Lord, a literal incarnation of Supreme Lord. He will be glorified as Supreme Lord and you will be glorified as his mother." Satyavati was scared. She's not married. She doesn't know how to deal with it. Prashar Muni said, "Don't worry. Your pregnancy won't be visible to the world and you will remain maiden after giving birth to this child. Because you're doing such a divine service, you will be blessed with a divine fragrance." And you know who that child was? That child was the author of Mahabharata, is Ved Vyasi. And this brings our next lesson: sacrificing individual interest for a higher purpose. Satyavati sacrificing a secret for a higher cause. And Satyavati requested Ved Vyasi to impregnate Ambika and Ambalika through his divine powers. Satyavati told to Ambika and Ambalika that your brother-in-law will come and through this you will conceive a child. And they had no idea which brother-in-law she's talking about. In their ideas, they were thinking Bhishma, and they don't know about Vedvyas. Ambika was anticipating a Bhishma and ready for sacrifice. Vedvyas' appearance is completely different from Bhishma. Vedvyas was filled with ghee, some kind of a medicated ghee. Ambika realized she has to, when Vedvyas entered, Ambika realized she has to go through this. She closed her eyes tightly. Vedvyas did his magic and came out of the room and told Satyavati that a child will be born, but he will be born as blind. As Satyavati closed her eyes. But the child will have a power of 10,000 elephants. He'll be very powerful. And his name will be Dhritarashtra. And for Ambalika's turn, Ambalika knew she don't have to close her eyes when her turn came. But what she did when Vedvyasi entered, she became so pale and froze. And when she saw Vedvyasi, she turned froze, and Vedvyasi came out of the room and said, Ambalika will have a son as well, but the son will be very pale and weak, but will be able to see the world. He'll have eyes, but will be weak. So this comes to, how do you respond to life? There is a fright, you fright the way Ambika did. You fight, which in a way Ambalika did. We also talked about the story of Krishna and Balram as well in the class. I might not go through it now. And these are the 4 ways to deal with the responses to the life. Then Satyavati asked, so from Ambalika we have Pandu, and then Satyavati asked Vedvyasi to go again to Ambika, please. And this time what Ambika did, she ran away, and she sent her maid servant. And this is the 3rd way to deal with it, like I said, flight, run away. And through the maid we had Vidur Maharaj, a very knowledgeable person who served Hastinapur. And they trust. Right, so story continues. Dhritarashtra. Let's talk about the first brother, Dhritarashtra. He marries Gandhari. Gandhari was from Gandhar state, which is in Afghanistan currently. Dhritarashtra was blind, born blind, whereas Gandhari chooses to be blind so she can experience what her husband is going through. And there are two ways to empathize with someone. One, you can empathize and help the person out, and another way is to do the same experience as the other one. And then Gandhari chooses the second option, is to experience the same as a husband. And this brings another lesson we have, lesson number 15, can't analyze karma. What happened once Dhritarashtra, after the Mahabharata war, Dhritarashtra asked the question to Krishna. He said, Krishna, why me? Why I'm born blind? I had 100 sons. Why I lose all 100 sons? Why me, Krishna? And then Krishna explained this all due to karma. 50 lifetimes ago, you were a hunter. And one day in your hunting expedition, you actually threw an arrow and then you blinded a male bird. And that male bird has a nest with 100 eggs. And you destroyed all 100 eggs. And that's the karma you are serving in this lifetime. And Dhritarashtra asked the question, why you have to wait for 50 lifetimes? Why can't you just give me my next life? And then Krishna replied, saying, having one kid, one son, one child is a blessing. And you need a lot of pious deeds to have a kid. Having 100 sons, you have to accumulate so many pious deeds. And it took you 50 years to accumulate that. So hence, we have to wait for 50 lifetimes to pay it back. And Dhritarashtra is someone, who emphasizes always on the lack list. I don't have this. There is two sentences we talked about in the class. First sentence is, I was born blind, but in a royal family. Second sentence, I was born in a royal family, but blind. So the difference between both is, one is the positive aspect of life, another one is the negative aspects of life. So lesson here is make a gratitude list. Don't make a lack list. We are so focused on making the lack list. I don't have this, I don't have that. And Dhritarashtra is someone who does that. He was in the BMW circle, blame, morose and worry circle. Whereas it should be, CID circle. Can I do something about it circle? Well, let's move on to another family, Pandu. Pandu, who's physically weak, pale, but he was a king. He became a king, but one day Pandu was in his hunting expedition and he mistakenly killed a deer, which was eventually a sage. And then sage at that time was mating with his wife, and he cursed Pandu that you will also die when you are at the peak of your enjoyment too. And that day, Pandu was decided, if I can't discriminate between deer and a sage, I should not be a king. And he took early retirement and went to the forest with his wives Kunti and Madhuri. And at that time, Dhritarashtra was put on the throne. And one day, Pandu came close to Madhuri and forgot about the sage's curse. And then Pandu died. And when Pandu died, Madhuri was also heartbroken and also died straight after. Let's talk about their kids. So Gandhari had 100 sons, as we all know, 100 Kauravas, and one daughter. And then Kunti and Madhuri had 5 sons, which all came from celestial gods, because Kunti had a power and a boon, as he can call any celestial god and can have a son from that god. And when she was a little girl, before her marriage, she tried that boon and she had a son named Karan from sun god. And then she put Karan in a river, and Karan was looked after by a charioteer. And then, Kunti had 5 Kunti and Madhuri have 5 Pandavas. Kunti had Yudhishthir, who came from a god of Dharamraj, Yamraj, Yudhishthir, then Bhim, then Arjun. Madhuri has 2 sons as well, Nakul and Sahadev. So this is it. This is the whole story of Mahabharata. Next week, we'll delve deep into this Bhagavad Gita, chapter number 1. And that's, in my opinion, chapter 1 is the most underrated chapter. And it's one of the chapter which we can relate to actually. This chapter is the problem statement. It's very important because until and unless we know the problem, how are we going to solve it? So we'll go through this problem statement at 3 o'clock next Sunday, the coming Sunday. Hare Krishna, everyone.